preparing your horse for travelling. Today I'm going to be preparing Bunny for travelling. This is the equipment that you use for travelling. This is a knee boot. This is a bandage pad. This is a travelling bandage. These are travelling boots, and this is a travelling rug, and finally this is a tail bandage. First of all, you have to use the tail bandage. You have to do the tail bandage first because when horses have the boots on, they often kick out because they're unsure about what is on their legs. I'm now going to show you how to put on a tail bandage. First of all, you have to make sure that your tail is nice and brushed. Next, you get about this much length of tail bandage and you put it under the horse's tail. Make sure that the bandage is flat and there isn't any hair under the bandage either side. Next, you flip this over up here and you then come round so that this is, you then come under again, under the tail, make sure this is flat, and you pull this down, you come up as far as you can, make sure it's not too tight but it's tight enough so that it doesn't come off, so that it doesn't cut off the circulation in the tail. Then you just keep wrapping round and evenly, so each time I do it so it should be half of the bandage. When using a tail bandage, you shouldn't leave it on for long because it can, after a certain period of time, it can cut off the circulation in the tail. You also shouldn't wet the tail bandage as that can often bring the hair with it when you take the tail bandage off. It's okay to occasionally dampen the tail just before putting the tail bandage on, as that can make the tail flatter. You need to make sure that you go down to the bottom of the dock so that the whole dock is covered. Then you go back up and around the tail. When you get to the tying bits, you need to make sure that you tie not on the very back but on the side, but not so it's under their bum. This means that it doesn't rub and then it's secure as well. So usually I'll come round once more so that it's nice and secure. And it's best just to do a normal bow. Usually I'd do a double knot. For some reason these strings on this tail bandage are uneven, but I'd usually do a double bow and then any excess. Now what you have to do is the remaining bit you fold over the top of the string from where you've tied the tail bandage. This, firstly, it means that this shouldn't rub on the underside of the tail, and it also means that the bow or wherever you've tied doesn't come out as quickly. Next, you want to just bend the tail back into shape, as the tail bandage can be quite restrictive. So now that we've done the tail bandage, next thing we're going to do is use the travelling bandages and the bandage pad. So first of all, you need to put on so it crosses at the front. This means that it protects the ear the most. Next, you want to put on your bandage. It's usually best, because it's quite tricky to hold the bandage pad in place and do this at the same time, so it's usually best if you have an assistant just to either hold the bandage pad in place or to hold the top of the bandage. So, let me hold it in place, thank you. So you want the point facing towards the head, and you want it to be up, and then you come round. You don't want it to be too tight, but you want it to be tight enough so that it doesn't slip. Try not to pull too much. That's fine, thank you. Then you want to be coming down evenly like we did with the tail bandage. Again, I usually do it halves. When you come down, you make sure that you come over under here, and at the front you want to try and make a V with the bandages, as you can see I've done there. When you come back up, and again coming back up, you want to make sure that it's even. Now with this flap that we did here, you now want to pull it down so that that's secure. You want to come up a tiny bit, and then you unravel and you strap on. So next we're going to do the knee boot. So the knee boot is used to protect the knees when travelling. So if your horse has a habit of picking their feet up or scraping, they don't knock their knees on the front of the horse box or trailer. So to do this, you have to, right here, you want to make sure that it's tight enough, but not too tight, if that makes sense. So you want it so that they can move and they can flex, but you don't want it so that they can't move their knees or legs. Again, you don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too loose. It's best if you can fit a finger in it. This is a good way of telling. With the second strap, you don't want to have it tight like that, otherwise the horse can't move its knee. So what you do is you bring it through. You need to make sure that it's loose. I usually see if I can fit 3 fingers. You then put it in to here. I'd usually leave a loop, because if your horse is panicking or fidgeting when you're trying to take it off, it makes it a lot easier. Another way you can tell this is just by putting their leg forwards and seeing if it's too tight, so that is on perfectly. Next I'm going to show you how to do a travelling boot. I'll show you a front boot and a back boot. So with a travelling boot, you need to make sure that the straps are facing towards the horse's bum. This is the same as a normal jumping boot and boot. So take it here. I usually bring it up here and then I slide it down. I start with the middle, just to keep it secure. Then I go for the bottom strap and then the top strap. I'll then go back to the middle just to make sure it's tight enough. So that is how you put on a front travelling boot. Now I'm going to show you how to put on a back leg travelling boot. Again, the same as the front leg, these need to be facing the horse's bum. So again, the same as when I did the front. I always slide it down. This means it's in place properly. And again, I'll do the middle, then the bottom, and then the top, and then I'll come back to the middle just to make sure it's tight enough. And that is how you prepare a horse for travelling on the legs. Next I'm going to show you how to put on the rug and how to tie up the straps. So with a travelling rug, best off to lie it on the floor. You want to tie up the belly straps, so just not too tight, not too loose, nothing fancy. I just knock twice. Next, what you need to do is put your rug back up. You need to fold it in half like so. This means you put it over and then you fold forwards and then you bring back. So if I show you now, go. So you put over the horse, make sure it's in good position, and then you just bring it back over the quarters. There you go. And again, like a normal rug, you start with the front, making sure it's nice and secure, not going to come off, and so it doesn't spook the horses. So you do this, there you go. Then you come around to this side to undo your straps. There you go. So I knot the straps on the other side and tie them so that when I put the rug on, it doesn't hit her in the legs and flicker, and so she doesn't get frightened. It doesn't cause an injury. So you start and you remember you have to cross the straps so that they're across under the belly. This means that they're less likely to get tangled. And this is how you put on a rug. You just need to make sure it's nice and straight. So this is how you prepare a horse for travelling. And then there's... So usually we would have a pole guard on the horse, but because our horse Lorry is quite high and the ceiling's high compared to her height, she doesn't need one, and we don't use them regularly. Today, although I've put the rug on now to show you, I won't be travelling her in a rug as it's very hot and she'd just sweat. So what I will do before we travel is just give her a wipe down with a damp cloth just to reduce the sweating. And of course I will finish the legs before we go.